Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Latina Diaspora. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it's called that is that we deal with issues pertaining to Latinos in the United States. Of course, I have my main YouTube channel, which is Uncommon Sense with Jose Negro. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, the subscriber mode has been enabled for the first 5 minutes, meaning that if you're not a subscriber and you wish to enter a comment in the chat, you need to subscribe to the channel. First of all, I just want to give a huge shout out to all those who have already subscribed to the channel, as well as a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media, also those who allow me to enter into your devices, and those who watch from the clouds, even the haters. So, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you have not done so already, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notifications to all. So, therefore, whenever I do produce content, you have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. So, the topic for tonight is, who is Nicolas Maduro? Okay. Now, we have heard a lot about him, quite a few negative stuff about him. He was, is, president of Venezuela. Of course, what we're going to do is we're going to learn about his personal history. We're going to try to separate facts from fiction. I'm not here to paint a glorious picture about him. I'm just trying to describe him as who he is. And then I'll leave it up to you to decide your impression about him. So, with that being said, we're going to have another episode of In My Words. Now, some of you might be asking, why am I spending time discussing Nicolas Maduro? Okay. Well, the fact of the matter is, we do have a sizable Venezuelan community, not only here in the United States, but in other cities as well. And of course, some of them, you know, were compelled to leave their native homeland due to the conditions over there, and they felt that there was very little that they can do to improve their situation in their native soil. So many of them decided to immigrate to the United States. Now, there's been a great deal of talk about illegal immigration. Okay. One thing we have to understand is that it's one thing when you enter the country illegally. Okay. That makes you a criminal simply by doing that. And then there are those who enter this country legally through either through a political assignment or through residency or any of the multiple legal means, so someone to gain entry in the United States. So tonight I'm just going to share some information. Now, it's just that next week's schedule is a little different because I'll be going out Wednesday night and Thursday night. And I am not trying to do a live at 11 o'clock at night, considering that I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get to work. So that would be, I mean, depending um, how long the lives are, I try to keep it under 2 hours, or even still. Uh, for me to do a live at 11 o'clock or even 11:30, Uh, I'm not at that stage in life. Okay, I do need some sleep. Okay, and I'm not as young as I used to be. But basically, I'm just trying to, talk about different topics and hope with the hope that might create um, an audience or enlarge the audience, and do what I can to, increase the activity in the algorithm. We shall see whether or not I succeed, or maybe I need to plan a different strategy. But in any case, we're going to get into the main topic. Now, before I get into the main target, you know what I'm going to say. Okay. First of all, the link to join the panel has been pinned. Should anyone wishes to hit that link and opine regarding the topic at hand, they may do so. However, if I never seen you before, if I never heard from you before, I will insist that you come up in the backstage to make sure that no one tries to flash any outdoor related content which would cause the people of YouTube to take down their stream. Now, once I determine that you're not going to try to do any of those shenanigans, then I'll let you on the panel. Okay. So let's just start with first one. Let me check and see. Every now and then I will check on Instagram and see who's viewing. So let's just deal with the basics. Okay. First of all, he was born on November the 23rd, 1962, which makes him a baby boomer. Um, now, initially, um, actually, let's just deal with, okay, let's deal with the personal history. As I said, he was born on November the 23rd, 1962, in Caracas, Venezuela, to a working class family. Okay. He is the child of Nicolas Maduro Garcia, okay, and Teresa de Jesus Moros. Okay. Now, his father was a prominent trade unionist leader and a militant dreamer of the Movimiento Electoral del Pueblo, which is known as NEP, who unfortunately passed away in a motor vehicle accident on April the 22nd, 1989. Okay. Now, he was raised Catholic. I did not. Okay. In 2012, it was reported by the New York Times that he was a follower of the Indian Hindu guru Satya Sai Baba and previously visited the guru in India in 2005. Now, in an interview in 2013, Maduro indicated his grandparents were Jewish from the Sepec Moorish background and converted to Catholicism in Venezuela. Now, he was married twice. Okay. His first marriage was to Adriana Guerrera Angulo, which he had his only son, Nicolas Maduro Guerra, otherwise known as Nicolasito, who was appointed to several senior government posts. The marriage ended in divorce, and then in July 15th of 2013, he married Cecilia Flores, a lawyer and politician who replaced Maduro as president of the National Assembly in 2006 when he resigned to become Minister of Foreign Affairs, becoming the first woman to serve as president of the National Assembly. They have no children together. Okay, so that just gave you a little bit regarding his personal life. Now I'm just going to share with you information regarding his early career. And then we're going to get into the situation regarding what happened to him that caused him his popularity to decline. He attended Liceo Jose Avilos Public High School, where he was introduced to politics as a member of the school student union. However, according to school records, he did not graduate. Now, for many years, Maduro worked as a bus driver for Caracas Metro. He founded an unofficial trade union at the company, which he had banned unions at that time. He also employed as a bodyguard for Jose Vicente Rangel during Rangel's unsuccessful 1983 presidential campaign. At age 24, Maduro was living in Havana after being sent by the Socialist League to attend a one-year course at the Escuela Nacional de Cuadros de Julio Antonio Medina, a political training center directed by the Union of Young Communists. According to Carlos Pinoza Sambro, during Maduro's time in Cuba, he was instructed by Pedro Mira Prieto, a senior member of the Politburo of the Communist Party of Cuba, who was a close friend of Fidel Castro. Now, in 1998, Maduro was elected to the National Assembly at the Venezuela Chamber of Deputies in 1998, to the National Constituency Assembly in 1999, and finally to the National Assembly in 2000, at all times representing the Capital District. Now, he was involved in foreign ministry from 2006 to 2012. And for those who are tuning in, I'm just discussing who is Nicolas Maduro and why he is not as well liked. Now, in 2006, Maduro was appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs and served under Chavez in that position until being appointed Vice President of Venezuela in October 2012. After the presidential election, according to BBC Mundo, during President Maduro's tenure as foreign minister, he was considered a key player in pushing the foreign policy of his current country beyond Latin America borders to approach almost any government rival that rivaled the United States. Venezuelan foreign policy stances during his term included ending relations with Taiwan in favor of the People's Republic of China, support for Libya under Muammar Gaddafi, breaking up diplomatic ties with Israel during the 2008-2009 Gaza War, recognizing establishing diplomatic relations with the State of Palestine, turning up relations with Colombia in 2000 and again in 2000, recognizing Abkhazia and South Ossetia as independent states. In New York, in September 2006, while attempting to travel back to Venezuela via Miami, Maduro was briefly detained by the United States Department of Homeland Security officers at Kennedy Airport around 490 minutes after paying for 3 airline tickets in cash Maduro and President Hugo Chavez were in the United States attending the 61st session of the UN General Assembly, where President Chavez called President George Bush the devil during his speech. Now, he was vice president um, of Venezuela from 2012 to 2013. Okay, let me just see this. Okay. Now, upon the death of Hugo Chavez, who was at that time the president of Venezuela, on March 5th, 2013, Maduro assumed the powers and responsibilities as president. He was appointed Jorge Areza to take his place as vice president. Since Chavez died within the first 4 years of his term, the Constitution of Venezuela stated that a presidential election had to be held within 30 days of his death. Maduro was unanimously chosen from as the Socialist Party candidate in the election when he secured temporary power. Opposition leaders argued that Maduro violated Articles 229, 231, and 233 of the Venezuelan Constitution by assuming the power of the president over the National Assembly. The succession of the President Maduro in 23, according to Corrales and Hall, was due to multiple mechanisms established by the Maduro predecessor Chavez. Initially, oil prices were high enough for Maduro to maintain necessary spending support, specifically for military foreign ties that was established by Chavez, were also used by Maduro as apply skills they learned while serving as foreign minister. Finally, the PSUV and the government institution aligned with Maduro and the regime used the institution of regression and policy also created under Chavez to become more repressive vis-a-vis the opposition. In April 2013, Maduro was elected president, narrowly defeating opposition candidate Enrique Capriles with just 1.5% of the vote, separating the two. Capriles demanded a recount, refusing to recognize the outcome as valid. Maduro was inaugurated as president on April 19th after the Election Commission promised a full audit of the election results. In October 2013, he announced the creation of a new agency, the Vice Ministry of Supreme Happiness, to coordinate social programs. Opposition leaders in Venezuela delivered a May 2016 petition to the National Electoral Council calling for a recall referendum with the populace to vote on whether to remove Maduro from office. On July 5th, 2016, the Venezuelan Intelligence Service detained 5 opposition activists involved with the recall referendum, with 2 other actors of the same party also arrested. After delays in verification of the signatures, protesters alleged that the government was intentionally delaying the process. The government, in response, argued that protesters were part of a plot to topple Maduro. On August 1st, 2016, the CNN announced enough signatures had been validated to recall the process of election, while opposition leaders pushed to recall to be held before the end of 2016, allowing for a new presidential election to take place. The government involved a recall will not occur until 2017, ensuring the current vice president will potentially come to power. Now, I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to go into 20. Let me just, excuse me. Now I'm going to share with you the reason why his popularity started to decline. Okay. Maduro's popularity declined following shortages in Venezuela and the drop in living standards, which had led way to protests in 2014 and escalated into daily marches nationwide and repression of dissent. An opposition-led National Assembly was elected in 2015, but Maduro maintained power through the Supreme Tribunal, the National Electoral Council, and the military. The Supreme Tribunal stripped the National Assembly of power and authority, resulting in a constitutional crisis and another wave of protests in 2017. In response to the protest, the Constituent Assembly of Venezuela was elected in 2017 under voting conditions that the opposition alleged were irregular. In 2018, Maduro was re-elected and sworn in. The people of the National Assembly, the President of the National Assembly, Juan Guaido, was declared interim president by the opposition, led the party starting a presidential crisis. In 2024, Maduro was re-elected to a third term, although evidence indicate he lost the election by a wide margin. Kind of reminds me of the 2020 presidential election here, where despite the fact that it is obvious that Donald Trump was defeated, he never conceded the results of the 2020 election. Okay. Now, Maduro was widely considered to be leading an authoritarian government characterized by electoral fraud, human rights abuses, corruption, censorship, and severe economic hardship. The United Nations and Human Rights Watch have alleged that under Maduro's administration, thousands of people had died in extrajudicial killings and 7 million Venezuelans were forced to flee the country due to economic collapse. Maduro denied the allegations of misconduct and argued that the U.S. has conspired against Venezuela to manufacture a crisis to enact regime change. On January the 3rd, 2016, U.S. forces captured Maduro and his wife, and they were transported to the United States and charged with drug trafficking, which they pleaded not guilty. So that kind of gives you an idea why he's not so popular. Just give me a moment. And of course, being a leader, I'm going to say alleged corrupt leader, because everyone is innocent until proven guilty. There have been assassinated attempts against Nicolas Maduro. On August 4th, 2018, while giving a speech commemorating the anniversary of the Bolivian National Guard and addressing soldiers in front of the Central Simon Bolivar Towers and Palacio de Justicias and Correctors, 2 drones detonated explosives near Avenida Bolivar, Caracas. The Venezuelan government claimed that the event was a targeted attempt to assassinate Maduro, accusing the Venezuelan National Assembly Deputy Juan Mackenzie of the attempted assassin. However, the cause and intention of the explosions is debated, while others suggested the incident was a false flag operation designed by the government to justify repression of opposition in Venezuela. In September of 2024, the Venezuelan police captured and arrested 3 Americans Two Spaniards in a Czech national carrying sniper rifles and other munitions to allegedly assassinate Maduro. In a public statement, Minister of Interior, Justice, and Peace, Diosdado Cabello, held that the CIA and Spanish intelligence responsible for the coup attempt, calling it not surprising. The minister also shared that they had arrested yet another U.S. military active member, Wilbur Joseph Castaneda, who evidence found his cell phone linking him to terrorist attacks during the 2024 Venezuelan presidential election. Now, I'm just going to deal with accusations regarding dictatorship, which does explain why he's not very popular. Maduro has been accused of authoritarian leadership since he took office in 2013. After the opposition won the 2015 parliamentary election, the lame Duck National Assembly, consisting of pro-Maduro Bolivian officials, filled the Supreme Tribunal with Maduro allies. The New York Times reported that Venezuela is moving closer to one-man rule. In 2016, the Supreme Tribunal refused to acknowledge the Democratic National Assembly's attempt to recall Maduro, and it is where dictator and authoritarianism begin to appear. Foreign Minister role in a full-on dictatorship. Javier Corrales wrote in America Quarterly that Venezuela has transitioned into a full dictatorship, and the OSA General Secretary Luis Amago said Maduro is becoming a dictator. At the elections, officials aligned with the government blocked an attempt to summon a recall referendum against Maduro. Venezuelan political analysis cited the Guardian one of authoritarianism and dictatorship. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to share more recent accusations. The January 10, 2019 second election of Nicolas Maduro was widely condemned and led by commentary that Maduro has considered his father became a dictator from the Times, the Council of Foreign Relations, German newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine and The Economist. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau labeled Maduro as an illegitimate dictator responsible for total oppression and humanitarian crisis. President Maurice Macri of Argentina and Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil condemned what they call Maduro dictatorship. Univision announcer Jorge Ramos described that his detention following a U.S. interview of Maduro, saying that if Maduro does not release the seized video of the interview, he is behaving exactly like a dictator. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders stated that if of course Maduro is a dictator, reporter Kenneth Raposo wrote an opinion piece for Forbes titled basically everyone now knows that Venezuela has a dictatorship. So that's basically, that gives you more of an idea why he is not well liked. Okay. Now, I do sympathize with the situation over there in Venezuela. Okay. In all fairness, I will have to do a lot more research in order for me to have a complete understanding. Okay. Um, I don't like to base anything just on a couple of sources. I truly believe that I need to do some more research. And as I stated before, this is not an attempt to glorify Nicolas Maduro or to try to separate facts from fiction. So I will leave that up to you to interpret what you think of him, whether he is a dictator or he's not. Um, I'm gonna end this. I'm gonna end this live. I will be live tomorrow night on my main channel, discussing how to avoid toxic people. So I'm going to describe what it means to be toxic and how we can avoid and, if necessary, deal on a limited basis. And of course, the playback gang, do your thing. You're more than welcome to enter your comments. Just keep it respectable. I probably not going to do a live next week due to the fact that I have a busy schedule next week, and plus I am dealing with two platforms. So I just wanted to give you my take regarding who he is. Most likely, people are going to watch this in the playback, which is perfectly fine. And of course, I'm going to close the same way that I always close. We must do everything possible to avoid the presence of the mentally and intellectually challenged, because if we fail to do so, we will be infected by the stupidity and mass insanity. And of course, um, whatever we say and do, we should do for the glory of God. So I just want to say thank you very much. Take care. Have a good night. And peace.
Be strong.